Welcome to ML's English Podcast, the show where English learning meets mindset growth. Whether you're here to boost your vocabulary, speak with confidence, or build a strong, unstoppable mindset, you're in the perfect place. Get ready for powerful tips, real conversations, and high energy that will move you forward. This is more than just a podcast. This is your new routine for success. Okay, let's kick off our deep dive today. Have you ever found yourself in a conversation that just hits a wall? You ask a question, and it's like throwing a pebble into a black hole. No echo, no return.
Absolutely. Yeah, it feels like trying to play catch with someone who keeps dropping the ball. Or, like I experienced just last week, talking to an especially unhelpful auto-reply bot. The energy just vanishes.
That's precisely it. We've all been there, right?
Yeah.
Maybe at a networking thing or just meeting someone new. Yes, so what do you do? And they say, I'm an engineer, okay? You try to follow up. Oh, cool. What kind of projects do you work on? And you get back, just normal stuff. Then maybe one more try. How did you get into that field? And they just shrug. I don't know, just like computers.
Yeah.
No story, no details, nothing really to grab onto. You end up scrambling, throwing out conversation lifelines one after another, and they just sink.
It's really frustrating, isn't it? Because a good conversation, well, it's like a fire. It needs energy, fuel from both sides to keep it burning. If one person keeps adding logs, but the other just kind of sits there, the flame dies out fast.
That's a perfect way to put it. And the really disheartening part, when this happens, people often blame themselves. They think they're bad at conversations, when really maybe they just don't know how to keep that fire alive. So for our deep dive today, we're going to tackle exactly that, how to turn those awkward silences into, genuinely engaging exchanges. We'll look at why conversations sometimes stall and, more importantly, dig into 3 powerful strategies to help you become a much better, more dynamic conversationalist.
Right. So if a good conversation is like that lively fire, what are the things that usually put it out?
Well, one of the biggest reasons, something you see talked about a lot in communication studies, is this thing called the filtering effect.
The filtering effect. Okay, that sounds like something a lot of us probably do without even realizing it. Can you break that down? What does it actually mean, and how does it sabotage our conversations? Yeah, it's a really common thing. Basically, the filtering effect is when people hesitate to speak because they're constantly pre-screening their thoughts. They're afraid of saying something wrong or maybe not interesting enough or even sounding unintelligent. It's like their brain has this super strict security checkpoint, Every little thought needs multiple stamps of approval before they let it out.
Wow. So they end up overthinking so much that they just clam up, say almost nothing. It's like a self-imposed silence.
Exactly. Precisely. They get so self-conscious, second-guessing every potential word. So instead of letting the conversation flow naturally, they create this internal bottleneck. It just stops them from contributing in a normal, spontaneous way. And the real irony here, which social psychologists often point out, is that all this hesitation usually makes them feel even more awkward, which then makes it even harder to say anything. Their mind kind of freezes up with this fear of imperfection, and bam, the conversation just grinds to a halt, stagnant.
Yeah, I can totally see how that spirals. And when the conversation flatlines, because someone's stuck in that internal filter, the other person might just think they're not interested, right? When really the person's just trapped in their own head. This kind of connects to another big hurdle too, doesn't it? What about social anxiety? How's that different?
That's a really important point. Social anxiety, it often takes that filtering to a whole other level. For some people, that nervousness can actually make their mind go completely blank, just nothing. Instead of thinking about what to say, their brain starts spinning with self-criticism, like, am I boring? Are they judging me right now? Until basically their cognitive functions just kind of shut down.
Whoa. It's like when your phone has way too many apps open and it just crashes. Your brain just can't handle the overload.
Exactly. That's a great analogy. And this anxiety often leads to a really rigid way of speaking, short, stiff answers, nothing expansive. The paradox here, and it's a big one, is that they're terrified of seeming boring. But by saying almost nothing because of that anxiety, they accidentally create this really monotonous interaction that feels dull for everybody involved.
Right. And then there's a third big reason conversations can just die, one that's maybe simpler but just as common. Lack of listening.
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes people just aren't really tuned in. They might be busy thinking about what they're going to say next, or maybe their minds just drifted off somewhere else entirely.
Yeah, it's like trying to play tennis, but instead of watching the ball coming at you, you're just thinking about your awesome next serve. By the time the ball actually gets to your side of the court, you're totally unprepared. You've got nothing.
Precisely. Because they weren't really paying attention, they miss all those little cues, those little details, the threads we'll talk about later.
Right.
That could have opened up a much more interesting back and forth conversation. They basically missed the ball.
Okay, so understanding why conversations stall is the first step. Super helpful. Now, let's get practical. Let's talk about the how. We've dug into this and found 3 really powerful strategies that can genuinely transform your interactions, help you move past these common issues.
Yeah, and what's great about these is how practical they are. These aren't just like vague ideas. They're actual techniques you can start using right away.
Awesome. Let's jump into the first one then. Remove the filter. Sounds simple, doesn't it? Just, speak more freely. Stop overanalyzing every single word. But we know it's easier said than done for a lot of people.
Oh, for sure. But think about little kids for a second. They don't sit there wondering, will this sound cool? Is this smart enough? They just talk. And that's exactly why their conversations can be so full of spontaneity, just genuine curiosity. They speak their minds without that heavy fear of judgment.
That's so true. But most adults, especially when meeting new people, we get so self-conscious. We hesitate before saying pretty much anything.
Exactly. And that hesitation, like we said, it creates that mental bottleneck. Instead of thoughts flowing naturally from your brain out your mouth, you stop them, you analyze them, question if they're good enough, and what happens? You end up saying nothing, or you give the absolute safest, most vanilla, monotonous response possible. Research actually backs this up. We filter out the very things that make us interesting.
And it's kind of funny, isn't it? In trying so hard to sound interesting or smart, people end up making themselves less engaging because they're filtering out their actual personality, their natural spontaneity. So what's the key insight here? What can really help us break free from that?
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. There's this concept called the spotlight effect. Basically, research shows we massively overestimate how much other people are actually paying attention to us and judging us. The truth is, most people are way more caught up in their own heads worrying about how they sound, how they look, what they should say next, than they are analyzing your every word. Once you really start to believe that, internalize it, it's incredibly freeing.
Wow, that totally shifts the perspective, doesn't it? Okay, so besides just realizing that, what are some practical steps? How do you actually start removing that filter?
Well, you gotta practice talking without the constant overthinking. Start small, low pressure situations, chatting with a friend, maybe a coworker about something casual. Make a conscious effort to just respond without pausing to dissect your thoughts first. Let it flow. It's like building a muscle.
Right. And I heard a neat trick for this too. If you're really stuck, try verbalizing your thought process a bit. Like instead of filtering, you could say something like, I was just thinking about, or, oh, that reminds me of. It kind of trains you to keep the words flowing naturally instead of getting stuck in that pause of self-doubt.
Yes, exactly. And a fun way to kind of push yourself is to maybe set a little challenge. Like try having a conversation where your specific goal is just to speak without pausing for, say, 30 seconds straight. It doesn't have to be perfect, not at all. The point is just getting used to letting words flow instead of constantly stopping yourself.
That sounds like a really good exercise. Okay, so the main takeaway for this first strategy is stop trying to be perfect. Just talk. Conversation should feel fluid, spontaneous, not like some rehearsed speech. All right, that was strategy 1. You mentioned 3. What's the next one, and how does it maybe challenge how we usually think about conversations?
Okay. The next strategy is, it's actually pretty counterintuitive for a lot of people. It's using something called the pratfall effect. And this one's powerful because it completely flips our usual ideas about making mistakes and how people perceive us.
The pratfall effect. That sounds interesting. Tell us more about that principle.
Sure. It's a psychological principle. Basically says that people actually find you more likable, more relatable, more, human when you make small, understandable mistakes. It comes up a lot when talking about charisma.
That actually makes a lot of sense when you think about it. Someone who seems too polished, too perfect, they can feel a bit distant, almost robotic, right? You might admire them, but you don't necessarily feel like a warm connection.
Exactly. But when someone can laugh at themselves, maybe admit they forgot something simple, or even just stumble over a word, it instantly makes them seem more human, more approachable. It's kind of like why some comedians, the really beloved ones, sometimes intentionally make silly mistakes on stage. They might trip a little, or mispronounce something funny, or laugh at their own joke ending. And the audience often connects with them even more because of it.
It really is counterintuitive, isn't it? We spend so much energy trying to seem flawless, but it's often those little slip-ups that actually build connection. Why do you think that works psychologically?
Well, the research suggests it's about relatability. Those small imperfections break down the barrier. If you seem too perfect, it's hard for people to connect. It creates distance. But showing a little vulnerability, a little imperfection, that signals authenticity. People connect with realness.
And that's huge for conversations because so many people hold back, totally paralyzed by the fear of saying the wrong thing. But this suggests that making tiny, harmless mistakes might actually help the conversation flow better.
Precisely. So if you mispronounce a word or you lose your train of thought for a second, don't panic. Seriously, just own it lightly, maybe even joke about it quickly. Something like, oops, my brain just did a little reboot there. It keeps things light, keeps the conversation moving.
Yeah, and for anyone listening who's learning English, this is such a key point. Native speakers really genuinely don't mind mistakes. In fact, language experts often say they admire the effort. I remember when I was learning another language, I used to be so stiff about getting everything perfect. But the second I just relaxed, stopped worrying, and just spoke, my confidence shot up. And honestly, my fluency improved way faster too.
That's a perfect example. That's the pratfall effect right there in action. So the takeaway here is pretty clear. Stop chasing perfection. Embrace the little fumbles, be authentic, be real. It'll actually make you a much more engaging and likable conversationalist.
Okay, super powerful stuff. Now, under the third strategy you mentioned, you said this one is one of the most transformative techniques, threading.
Ah, threading. Yes. This is like the secret sauce for making conversations flow naturally. It turns those potential dead ends into actual pathways for deeper connection.
Exactly. So threading is basically actively listening for specific threads. Could be keywords, ideas, even feelings in what the other person just said. And then you gently pull on one of those threads to expand the conversation. Instead of letting a topic just drop, you use it to open up multiple new directions.
Yeah, it's kind of like finding a spider web, you know? Every statement someone makes, even a simple one, usually has these little connection points, these threads. But if you don't notice them or don't pull on them, the conversation just breaks up, stalls.
Perfect image. Okay, let's make it concrete. Say someone mentions, I went to Italy last summer.
Yeah.
If you're not thinking about threading, you might just say, oh, cool. And then cricket sounds right. Awkward silence.
Yep. Total dead end. But that's where threading completely changes the game. Instead of that flat response, you can pull multiple threads just from that one sentence. Watch this. You could ask, oh, wow, what was your favorite part of Italy? That gets them talking more about their experience.
Okay.
Or maybe, oh, I love Italian food. Did you try anything amazing or discover a cool local dish? Now you're talking about food, maybe a shared interest, or even Italy, I've always wanted to go. What was the most surprising thing you found while you were there? Now you're sharing your interest and asking for something a bit deeper.
See? Just like that, instead of closing the door, you've opened like 3 different doors for where the conversation can go next. It feels so natural too. And the best part, you don't have to force it. If you just stay genuinely curious, you'll start seeing these threads everywhere, automatically.
It's so true. I actually made a point of trying this at a party not long ago. I was chatting with someone who mentioned they'd just started learning guitar. Now, honestly, I know next to nothing about guitars. But instead of just saying, oh, nice, and moving on, I asked things like, what made you want to pick it up? What's been the hardest part about learning so far? Do you have, like, a dream song you're hoping to play eventually?
And boom.
Yeah.
Right there, you turned a simple statement into a really engaging, multi-layered chat.
It's amazing how much you can explore from just one little starting point.
It really is. And the coolest thing is, the more you consciously practice threading, the more it just becomes second nature, really intuitive. You start seeing these connections everywhere, and honestly, you'll find you pretty much never run out of things to talk about again.
So the key insight for threading is really listen for those subtle connections. Ask open-ended questions, then invite people to share more. And above all, stay genuinely curious. That's the absolute best way to keep any conversation alive and interesting. Absolutely. And just to help make these ideas really stick and maybe help you use them more naturally, let's quickly touch on some of the key vocabulary words we've used today. Understanding their nuances can make a difference.
Yeah, definitely. Knowing these words will really help you express yourself more naturally and confidently in English conversations. Go for it.
Okay, first, spontaneity. This means acting naturally without overthinking or planning everything out. Like, John's spontaneity surprised everyone when he booked a last-minute flight to Paris on a whim. Just doing it.
Got it. Spontaneity.
Then, self-conscious. That's being overly aware of how others might be seeing you, often leading to feeling awkward or hesitant. For example, Emma felt self-conscious about wearing glasses in school until she realized no one actually cared.
Self-conscious.
Bottleneck. This is like a blockage or a point where things get slowed down or stuck. Think of traffic. Traffic was moving smoothly until a car accident created a bottleneck on the highway, causing a huge delay. In conversation, it's that mental blockage.
Right, the internal bottleneck, okay.
Yeah. Monotonous. This means dull, repetitive, lacking variety, making something feel boring or tedious. Like listening to the same playlist every day made his morning runs feel monotonous.
Monotonous, yeah.
Authentic. This means genuine, real, true to itself, or oneself, not fake. Like, her grandmother's old recipe gave the dish an authentic homemade taste. Real deal.
Authentic, good one.
Relatable. This means easy to connect with or understand because it feels familiar or resonates with your own experiences. So, the comedian's jokes were so relatable that the entire audience couldn't stop laughing and nodding along.
Relatable, key for connection.
Rigid. This means stiff, inflexible, not willing to bend or change easily, can apply to rules, attitudes, or even physical things. For instance, the company's rigid dress code required employees to wear suits even in summer. Not flexible.
Okay, rigid.
Stalls.
Yeah.
This means to come to a stop, often unexpectedly, or to slow down significantly. To stop functioning, like we said about conversations, or the project stalls every time they wait for the manager's approval.
Yep.
Mutual, meaning shared between two or more people, felt or done by each towards the other. For example, Lisa and Mark ended their relationship on mutual terms with no hard feelings, shared understanding.
Mutual, got it.
And finally, intuitive. This means easy to understand or use without needing a lot of thought or instructions, feeling natural or instinctive. Like, the new smartphone's design is so intuitive that even my grandmother learned how to use it in minutes. Just makes sense.
Intuitive. Excellent. Those words are super useful, yeah. Really helps add nuance and sound more natural. Okay, that was a really packed deep dive today. We've covered a lot, how that filtering effect, social anxiety, and just not really listening can make conversations completely stall out. But more importantly, hopefully, we've given you 3 really practical, powerful strategies.
Yeah.
How to start removing that internal filter, why embracing small imperfections, the pratfall effect, actually makes you more likable, and how using threading can keep any conversation flowing and alive.
Absolutely, and it's worth repeating. Conversation is definitely a skill. It's not just something you have or don't have. The more you consciously practice these techniques, the better you'll get, and the more natural and intuitive it will all feel.
So here's your challenge, straight from our deep dive today. Next time you're in a conversation, could be later today, tomorrow, actively try using just one of these strategies. Pick one. Remove your filter a bit more, embrace a little imperfection if it happens, or consciously look for and pull on a conversational thread. Just try one and see how it changes the interaction, even just a little bit.
Yeah, and maybe that leads to a final thought for you to consider. How might improving these specific conversation skills actually unlock new opportunities, or maybe deeper connections in your work or personal life, things you hadn't even thought about before? Because really, it's not just about speaking English better. It's about opening up your world through connection.
That's a wrap for today's episode on MLS English Podcast. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share this episode with someone who's serious about growing in English and in life. Keep practicing, keep pushing, and we'll see you in the next one. Let's grow together.